I want to concentrate on one article today in Moskovsky Komsomolets because I think it highlights the difficulty the Russian authorities have post-mutiny in explaining to the Russian public how Wagner and Prigozhin have suddenly gone from hero to zero. In other words, how what the authorities created, financed, backed and praised ended up marching on Moscow. This is Vitaly Milonov, a Russian MP, posing here with Yevgeny Prigozhin. The article's entitled "A Mutiny Separates Love from Hate." Vitaly Milonov, who loved Wagner, talks about Prigozhin's uprising. At the start of June, Vitaly Milonov was still calling Wagner fighters true patriots. Now, in keeping with the official line, he's talking about Wagner's treachery, betrayal of the interests of the motherland. He draws a parallel with 1917, the removal of the Tsar, the Russian Revolution. He mentions General Vlasov, the Red Army general and Nazi collaborator. Vlasov was executed after the war. But the treachery argument inevitably leads to the question, well, if Prigozhin and some of the Wagner group are traitors, why have charges against them been dropped? Especially since Russian Air Force pilots were killed in the mutiny, shot down by Wagner. Milonov tries to address this, again repeating the Kremlin's argument. The president gave his word. He has expressed his belief that the alternative scenario was that many of our soldiers and civilians could have been killed. The president took this step, a deal with Wagner, and I respect him for this. Remember, it was the Kremlin that gave the green light to Wagner, and that has actually admitted financing Wagner. That aspect isn't addressed here. Milonov criticises Prigozhin for reportedly having said we'll pay compensation to the families of the dead pilots. Milonov adds, we're not talking about a tank crushing a bicycle here or crashing into a circus. Our lads were killed, pilots. It's a huge tragedy. And yet no one is being prosecuted for that. But he also goes out of his way not to dismiss all of Wagner as traitors. He says Wagner fighters who, for example, fought in Bakhmut had his total respect. And yet on Sunday, we heard Russian state television's main news programme casting doubt on how effective Wagner had been in the battle for Bakhmut. Slightly different approach from today's Komsomolskaya Pravda, an ultra-pro-Kremlin paper. It has a big article entitled "A Pointless and Failed Mutiny." But it doesn't mention Wagner or Prigozhin at all. Instead, it lists various insurrections and uprisings around the world in recent years which all failed. The clear message here, mutiny doesn't work.